Can you say for me, please, end?
End.
Can you say for me, please, friend?
Friend.
Can you say for me, please, spend?
Spend.
And so first of all, you get an
End.
and then you find a new
Friend.
and that means you then give your life to
Spend.
Okay, there we are. Here's what we're going to have. Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. Let's have the next slide. This is what's happening today. This is what Galatians talks about, what you do at baptism. You go from a place where you trust yourself of how to lead your life. You trust yourself in how to lead your life. You maybe listen to other people, you maybe think this person's wise, this person isn't, but ultimately you decide what you think is the best way to live your life. In baptism, you bring that way of living to an end. That way of living comes to an end. You're reborn. You go into the water. Where are you? All of you who've given the testimony, you go into the water, and that is a mark of an end. And the same person does not come up. A new person comes up. A new person who now trusts Jesus. And the colouring of dark red illustrates a life where it talks about in Galatians and in Jesus himself says that you feel lost or you feel alone or you feel unclean. And then as you come up, you're still in the same world. You don't pop up out of the pool into a totally different space where everything's shiny and beautiful. What was it? You said, Jemima, butterflies and rainbows or something? Yes? It's not like that. But you come up and in your heart of hearts, you know that you have a friend. This friend is the God who made you, who loves you, who is for you and is with you. The wisest one. The most faithful one, the strongest one is now your friend. And so as you come up and you give yourself to live this life, it's like a gold sense, a glorious golden sense is in your heart, even while you still live and operate in the same environment. Next click. So the thing that happens is that what I want to encourage you who've been baptized and anybody who here who's been baptized, Galatians is about, well, what happens when you're living in this glorious God thing on your heart, but you start to then find that the situation that you're in drags you back to where you used to be. You go back to living as if Jesus isn't now your friend, as if there hasn't been an end. You no longer spend yourself on the things of God. You go back to how you used to live. And so after death, new birth, of baptism, there's a sense that what can happen and does happen for many people is you no longer live with this glorious gold defining how you live, but instead you find yourself sliding one day at a time, and suddenly you turn around and you think, I'm no different from how I used to be. I've returned. And Paul says, stand firm, stand firm, stand firm. Remember this, what you've given yourself to have Jesus as your friend, to spend yourself on him and his things, is superior in every way to what you used to have. Isn't it? Isn't it, he says. Isn't it? And so next time, how do we do that? Okay, this is the key verse for today. This is what chapter 5 of Galatians explains to us. Through the Spirit, we eagerly await by faith the righteousness for which we hope. These are the things that you do to help yourself continue to live in the glorious gold, not to return to the dark red. There's three things. We're going to spot them in this verse and we're going to call them out. For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any value. The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. Let's break this down. Here we go. Next slide. Trust Jesus means I have been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians 5, verses 5 to 6 here. Galatians 2, chapter 20 there. These are going to tell us the three things that we do to stand firm, to continue to live in the freedom that Jesus has won for us. Remember your life ended. Can you all say for me? End. Remember, there's an end. You used to live conforming to what everybody else in school said you should live. You used to be afraid of the future, and so you used to find all kinds of things to cling on to make yourself feel safe. You used to find coping mechanisms to hide your shame or to deal with your pain. You used to find those things, and those things, when you go down, it doesn't end. There doesn't end. Can you say it again? There's an end. And for some of us here today, when we go out, we're going to have to remember, I've ended that stuff. I don't do that anymore. I don't think like that. I'm not that person anymore. They've gone. Second thing you do, trust God is your friend. Jesus is the best and closest and most faithful friend you could have. God is the friend who comes to approach you. He says to you, I love you not because you deserve it, but because I love you. That's who I am. I approach you in love. Jesus is your friend. And this happens through the Spirit. This happens as you read what Jesus has said. And thirdly, the thing you do is you spend your life on Jesus. You no longer spend your life trying to fill your bucket list and get everything done you wanted to do. You no longer think, I know the way to get the best things in life. You no longer pursue what you think is your dreams and your hopes. You no longer expect any of those things. Instead, you spend yourself on Jesus, trusting him that if you do what he says, for everything in all of creation, it will be better than if you do what you think is the best thing to do. This is the call of baptism and the call of the Christian life. Lay down what you think is the best option and take up what Jesus says is the best option and spend yourself on it. You spend yourself on it. And we see this over and over and over again. We've heard it in the testimonies. We see it in the scriptures. Paul gave his life walking around, doing what he thought was the best thing. Finding people who pursued Jesus and followed Jesus, he would drag them and take them to see them stoned or imprisoned. And Jesus appears to him. And what does Jesus show to him? That life Paul needs to. Now, let me be your. And I want you to give your life. In fact, I want you to yourself for my glory. Paul then, for years, never changes, never says this was wrong, never thinks I need to go back. He spends himself with joy. You see it over and over again in the New Testament. You see it over and over again in people's lives. Over the 10 years that we've been in Croydon, we have seen person after person. I think we're nearly up to 100 baptisms of people who are saying, yes, I choose to bring an end to living life what I think is the best way to live. Yes, I truly find Jesus is my friend. That changes everything. He's real. God's real. That changes everything. Changes everything. And so I spend myself trusting him. He is your friend, so anything he asks you to do will always be the best thing. Will always be the best thing. Maybe not for you personally tomorrow, but in the grand scheme of all that he's seeking to do, renew all the earth, you get to play a part. And it's a sign, isn't it? Baptism, as you come out of the water, you're resurrected, as it were, now. And it's a sign of the great resurrection that will come on all the earth. Because this earth, as it is now, will end. And a new earth will be created where Jesus is at the center, saying to all people, he is there. And that whole new creation with Jesus at the center will see all people, all of eternity, living in the glory and joy that only Jesus being at the center releases into all of creation. So that's the encouragement. Come on, Andy. That's the encouragement.